This is huge. What if you can add function calling to your Assistance API? What if you can integrate that in your Node.js application? That's exactly what we're going to see today. Let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm really excited to show you about Assistance API with function calling in a Node.js application. I'm going to take you through step by step on how to run this and code yourself. Before going into that, I regularly create videos in regards to artificial intelligence, so do subscribe and stay tuned. Coming to Assistance API, the first step is create your assistant, that is data analyst. Next, you're creating a thread. Third, you're creating a message. Finally, you're running the code with custom instructions. I have already covered this in the previous video, which I will link that in the description below. So it basically contains assistant, thread, and then we create a message, then we run it. Message is when the user asks question to the data analyst. Now we're going to run this code without function calling. The question we are going to ask the data analyst is, what is the stock price of Apple? That is the message. Now we're going to run this code. In your terminal, node function calling.js. You can see the status is queued now. Now the status got completed and we got the answer here. Assistant, I'm sorry Mervyn Praisen, but I don't have the capability to provide a real-time stock market data or updates. ChatGPT doesn't have the capability to get the real-time stock price. This is when the function calling comes in. Function calling is nothing but a function or a software or a tool which can be integrated with the Assistance API. Imagine you have a function which gets the stock price in real time. Now we are going to see how we are going to integrate that with this application. I'm going to use Yahoo Finance to get the real-time stock price. So it's npm install Yahoo Finance 2 and click enter. Going back to the code, you are importing Yahoo Finance from Yahoo Finance 2. We are going to create an async function with get stock price and passing the symbol as the parameter, and it returns the real-time stock price. Now we are going to integrate this function in Assistance API using function calling. To do that, first we are going to create tools list. Constant tools equals, and then you're adding the list. Here you are mentioning type is function and the function name is get stock price. That's what we defined previously. Then we are providing the parameters, that is the symbol, and symbol is the only required parameter. Now we are going to pass this tool when we create an assistant. So tools equals tools. We have done two things. One is creating a function called get stock price, and then we created a tools list and added that to the assistant's create function. If you see the list of steps without function calling, there are 4 steps, but when you add function calling, you're adding one more step, which is requires action. Now we are going to add this in the code. In the code, while checking the status of the run, here we mentioned completed. There is one more status called required action. I'm going to add that. Else if run status.status equals requires action. Then console.log requires action, just for our reference. Then constant required actions equals run status.required action dot submit tool outputs dot tool calls. This is where you retrieve your required actions. And now we're going to print the required actions. And now we're going to run the code. In your terminal, node function calling.js. First it gets queued, the status. Then here the status becomes requires action. And you can see there's a JSON called required action. And we are printing the required action here. The required action constant contains a function get stock price and the symbol AAPL. So this symbol need to go into get stock price, and we need to return that back to Assistance API. This loop will keep on continuing until we return the stock price. So I'm going to cancel this one, and going back to the code, I'm going to define let tools output equals to a list. Then I'm going to loop through this required action for constant action of required action, opening the bracket, constant function name equals action.function.name, which you can see here, the action.function.name. Next we are going to get action.function.arguments. That's where you'll have the symbol AAPL. Function arguments equals action.function.arguments. Now we're going to pass this JSON because that is a JSON output. If function name equals get stock price, constant output equals await get stock price, and passing the symbol. Next, tool output dot push tool call id action.id comma output colon json.stringify output. Now closing the bracket, else console.log unknown function, and closing the overall bracket. Now we got the tools output with the required stock price. Now we need to return that back to Assistance API. That is the final step. The way we do it is await openai.beta.threads.runs.submit tool outputs. You're passing the thread ID, run ID, and the tools output. This we can consider as the final fifth step. That's it. We checked if the status is requires action. Then we parse the required action output, checked if the function is getStockPrice, ran the function, and then we finally return the tools output back to submit tools output. Now we're going to run this code in your terminal, node function calling.js. Now the status got queued. Now we can see the status requires action. Then we are parsing this JSON, which contains this function and the parameter. Now our function is running, which is Yahoo Finance. And finally the status completed. And we got a response here. As a user, we asked what is the stock price of Apple, and the assistant replied the stock price of Apple is 187.44 USD. That's it, as simple as that. Now you are able to integrate any function in your Assistance API using function calling. There is one more thing I want to tell you. If you want me to present your work or your code like this, do submit your code in the URL shown in the screen, mer.vin/submit work. I'm going to create more videos in regards to Assistance API, so stay tuned. I hope you like this video. Do like, share and subscribe, and thanks for watching.